Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story, and today I'm going to show you how to make the dimensional flower or butterfly stretch bracelet. So this is the dimensional flower bracelet, and this is actually the original one I made way back when. So this one's many years old. The rubber really holds up well. I've worn this many times. This is the butterfly versions of this bracelet, and you can see in order to make this butterfly we're just adding an extra O-ring to each of our components that we make, and it turns it into a butterfly. So this original design was by Joe Ray, and we made this a long time ago in our 12mm O-ring size, and with that one these in-between rings, so where you see here the bright kiwi, would be doubled in order to keep that larger size in a nice configuration. And then later on I turned this into a mini and used much smaller O-rings and jump rings for it. And then of course I added the butterfly version of this later. And I don't think I've ever shown people how to do the butterfly before or had a kit in it. So I've added these two new ones this week, and you can do these in any color that you want to. I'll provide the supply list for you, so go crazy. These look great in arm parties when you're putting a bunch of your stretchy bracelets together. These always add that little bit of feminine flair that you need, and I just absolutely love them because they just add that little finishing touch that's needed to make an arm party just look fantastic altogether. So I hope you'll enjoy this project, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as I stated in the introduction, this is not a new project, but it has been updated with the butterflies, and I've done this in many different ways through the years. So I just wanted to show you all of these different ways I've found to pull the O-rings through the jump rings, just so that if you don't have if you don't have the 450 BN pliers from Xuron, you don't have something that's got this tiny little tip that you can use, it's okay. You can use a bead wire. Look, just cut off a little piece of bead wire, and you can use that to pull it through. Or if you have crochet hooks around, if you've got a little one, that works great too. So I'm going to show you all three ways. To do this project, the first thing we want to do is take our 18 gauge 5/32 jump rings and get them all closed. There's not that many of them. There'll be one for each component row. And then I'm going to go ahead and pre-open all of my 20 gauge 1/8 inch jump rings. And you'll notice I actually, with the new ones, I like the shiny being inside the flower just to give you a little sparkle, and then I really like the matte to hold all the rows together. I thought that looked very attractive together. You can do it any way you want to, of course, but I particularly like that recipe for this. Okay, so we're going to take our first closed ring and we're going to start making our first component. So I'm going to just show you with a crochet hook first how to do this. And one of my tutorials, the dimensional bead tutorial, shows it with a crochet hook. And I think I have a Christmas version of this, which will be coming back out next month. And that may show the bead wire with it. But I just want you to know you can do this any way you want to. So you can see I'm just using the crochet hook to pull this through the center here. And I can kind of tilt it up so I don't get too much pull on it, and then just release it. Okay, so the first step is just pulling our first O-ring. These are 7.4mm O-rings. They're very skinny, through the center of this jump ring. So now I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to pick up one of these open jump rings I have sitting here, and I'm just going to fold this in half on itself. Now that can take a little learning curve. This is a little finicky, especially to do that first one. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that in half and pass this jump ring through. Now, if you want to, when you're doing the butterflies, if you don't want to start with a 6mm O-ring on the first end, you don't have to. And as I go along, I think you might see why you might want to do that. I went ahead and added my 6 at the start and it was no problem for me to still get the butterfly part on. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up a 6mm O-ring now. This is our little fat O-ring that sits between each row, and then I'm going to close my jump ring around this. But like I said, that jump ring will stay pretty well if you want to pull all 4 of your petals through before you do that part. It's fine. Do this in any order you want to do it. There's really not a lot of rules here. Okay, so our second petal, let's do this one with a little piece of bead wire. So I'm just gonna take our 7.4mm O-ring, I'm gonna plunk that on, and I'm just going to use it like a needle and pass it through the center of this O-ring, okay? And then I'll just, see, I pulled it on. I'll remove my needle, and now my second one has been pulled through the jump ring. Okay, now I'm going to take another open jump ring. These are my 20 gauge 1/8 again. And I'm going to pick this up. And once again, I have to fold that in half around this jump ring. So, okay, so you can see how that jump ring just passes through there, makes a second petal. I'm going to swing this second petal back over to this side, and I'm going to connect it to this 6mm O-ring. So you see, this is very, very, very easy to do. Oh, and I like using my larger pliers to close my jump rings, but I had the skinny ones sitting there, so I used them. I like the control a thicker pair of pliers gives you when you're closing your jump rings. But then sometimes you really need that tiny little edge if you're working with tiny spaces. Or if you're pulling through like we're about to do now. Okay, so you can see I've got 2 petals of my flower, or 2 butterfly wings on this. And I'm gonna take the bead wire and the crochet hook and get them out of my way. I've shown you those. And now the third method. So this method uses the 450 BNs. They also have, Zeron also has a tweezer nose, so that would work just fine too. Okay, so I put the pliers through and I let them open just a little bit. And I let them open just enough so I can grab onto this O-ring. Okay, and then I pull that through. Okay, so you can see all the different ways to do this. Very simple, very, very simple. Okay, I'm gonna take my jump ring once again. I know this O-ring I just pulled on is facing a weird direction. That's okay. Just kind of move things around so I can get that jump ring through. Okay, and then I'm going to add another 6mm O-ring to this side. So this will be like the opposite side of the component. Okay, so we have 3 petals added, and we just need to add 4, so we're in the home stretch here. Okay, so I'm going to take my pliers again, let them open, grab this O-ring, and you see sometimes I'm just tilting as opposed to like yanking it through, because I can actually very easily pull it out the wrong side if I pull too hard. So sometimes I just use slanting to kind of ease something through. Now that one's not fully all the way through on this side, so I think what I will do is I will apply my small jump ring here through the side that's not pulled through as much first. And that usually makes it a little bit easier to get this through. Okay, and there is O-ring 4. So we have a whole flower all in place and ready to go. So very, very simple. Okay, and that is really finished. So if we're doing a dimensional flower, this component's done. Our first component's done. And the only difference between the flower and the butterfly is this step here. So I'm gonna take, I wanted to use a high contrast to do the body of the butterfly so that you would really see it. So whether you're doing dark wings and a light body, or a light body, or light wings and a dark body, I think a high contrast is called for here. It doesn't have to be super high contrast, but using like a lighter blue with a very dark blue was gonna give me the contrast I needed for this butterfly body. Okay, so I'm just tucking this O-ring onto the 6, and I'm gonna grab this with my right hand, and with my left hand, I am just going to pull this on any way that I can. Once again, we're not big on rules here, so any way you find to do it without tearing the O-ring. You don't want to use anything sharp around the O-rings because it can tear it. But now you see we have a butterfly. Okay, so that was really simple, right? And now to continue on, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna start another component. And as we work this next component, we are going to use the 6mm O-ring that's already here on this end to go ahead and attach that first side to, okay? So, like I said, the first O-ring that you do on each one of these is always the trickiest. And it gets a little easier after that because there's more stuff holding them in place in the center. Okay. And then you see I'm just attaching this to the O-ring that's already on the first component that I started. Okay, so very simple stuff here. This one's just so cute, but it's really so easy to do. And like I said, you can do it in larger sizes too, large and small. Okay, I'm gonna add my second petal. Okay, see how I'm just turning that to pull it through as opposed to pulling. And then notice how I push up with my thumb. I push this O-ring up with my thumb so that I'm kind of holding it in place so that I can get that jump ring through. And then just bring it around to the 6mm O-ring. Okay, so that's half of this second flower or butterfly done already. Okay, and then there's size charts in all of the kits have size charts in them. I always include that in my size charts when I'm doing a bracelet. But like I said, you know, feel free to do this on your own, do your own colors, do your own thing. Butterflies and flowers come in like every color. So, sky's the limit with this one. And we just, this past year, added a whole bunch of new colors in our 7.4mm O-rings. So that ought to give you a really nice palette to work with. Like the pastel purple is new this past year. I added dusky sage, teal, violet, all sorts of pretty colors. Okay, so here we are with our second petal. Now in the butterfly, I did this 2 different ways. So since when I did the last one, I started connecting the 6mm O-ring right away, I'm gonna leave this one here just so that you can see this is gonna hold in place. And if I don't connect the 6 yet, it's totally okay. It's gonna keep its place. Just having that jump ring pass through there, it holds pretty well. Okay. And then here's my final jump ring for the second component. Okay, and I'm just pulling that out a little bit so that the petal gets where it needs to go. Okay, and then you can see I have the jump rings through here. So the reason I wanted to hold off putting the 6 on is I want to show you when you finish this up. So when you finish a bracelet, it's just going to connect back to this starting O-ring here. Okay, so you're not really doing anything new. You're just connecting it back to the start. So when you're on the last row, you don't add an additional 6mm O-ring because you're going to use the one from the beginning. So what I want to show you here is that when I'm doing the butterfly, when I get to the end, and this is why I say if you didn't want to start, if you just wanted to leave these open, so in other words, it would kind of look like this when you got to the end, except for it would have its butterfly part already, its body. You could skip that, but let me turn this around and I'll just show you. So when I got to the end, I had to get the body over top of these open jump rings. This really wasn't a big deal. So do it any way that you would like to. Oops. So I just kind of, what I tried to do was, I kind of tried to just work. Well, here I say it wasn't a big deal, but you can see this a little finicky. It's being a little fussy this time. Okay, so I just kind of tried to pull one jump ring through the center of it, and then I'm gonna try and get the other O-ring around the second jump ring. Okay, so once I get those, then I can pull this down, this body down. And of course, if you're doing the dimensional flower, you don't have to worry about this part at all. Okay, and then you can see I've pulled my second butterfly body down, and I pulled it over the open jump ring. So you can do it either way. It works great. And then you just want to keep going, keep making these components until we have our final bracelet. And this is what this butterfly bracelet is going to look like. And just to bring this in again and show you, this is what the dimensional flower looks like. Okay, so you can do this either way. Both look super feminine on the wrist, and like I said, they just add this wonderful touch to your arm parties if you add this in with some other bracelets and give it that little touch of whimsy that you need. And really, that's all there is to this. So I'll bring back in this third color that I did. This goes with our new palette that I like to call Bamboo, with the I'm using like Buttercup, but trying to make it into like a mustard tone with turquoise, and in this case this is iguana green, but like with olive tones, and then with like some of our light tans and browns. I think it's a really attractive combination, and it really gives you some of those earthy tones while bringing in a little turquoise for brightness. This particular one, this kit that I have, this is actually the old original kit that I'm doing, and I just think that this Cupcake and Bright Kiwi with Silver Frost color combination just works effortlessly with so many of the different summer colors. So I just brought that one back, plain and simple. And then of course this new one in the blues and purples is going to look great with any of the mermaid collection colors that I've been doing, or another name I call it is the Seaside collection. So there's a lot of like really pretty white stretch bracelets that use the light blues, light purples, and sometimes light greens. So all of these are going to blend really well with all the other stretch bracelets that we have available for you out there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you'll take a look at beadmeastory.com for this and more ideas. This particular tutorial is free. Some of the projects that we do are a kit that will come along with a video when you purchase the kit. So we do things all sorts of different ways be sure to check out the website, and of course the supplies are available for you there as well. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. And one last thing, be sure to like and follow us on YouTube. Thanks so much.